Wow. It is week 9, and I've already mentioned it, so just brief that, this is that point in the semester at the end of this week that you have to make that decision. I often want to sing that song, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? You probably don't even know that song, but I do because I'm older. Maybe. I don't know. Does it really matter? Nah. Okay, so we are at week 9. And this is the point, and I kind of said this last week, but I think some things bear repeating as well, besides the whole, time to make a decision. And for the most part, you all are pretty much keeping up with the work, and I've seen almost everyone. I only have one more student to see for Dev, which means they're running a little bit late, and that happens sometimes. And I am actually already looking at the Dev one. Having said that, I definitely think now is the time. If you miss some of the major requirements, then you want to be fixing those things now, right? The one thing you're going to see me add in Dev 1 is that you have to validate all inputs, right? So why do I do this? I do this a bit more than Dr. Angela. I call her Dr. Angela because that's what she calls herself, but I know that's not her proper last name, but I got used to it. Yeah, but anyway, she doesn't emphasize it as much, mostly because, and I completely understand this, is that, and I've said this to you before, nobody's going to run our apps but you and me when we're running them in the command line. Okay, almost nobody. There are definitely some hardcore system admins or DevOps people that are going to, but the majority of people that we might want to write apps for are not. So that's where, as you develop into your Python skills, you realize there's ways to create traditional websites using Python to handle the logic, where you might also have to use something like JavaScript, but for the most part, you can hand that off to Python. But the point of this is just to get you used to that idea. Like, one of the things, I was writing code today for this week, it was week 12, and I was doing the guessing game. And one of the things that I think is just a simple way to handle validation is, like, after you get the input, then you say if that input in, and then you give it a list, and then you give it the possible variations, upper lowercase, or you could convert it to lowercase and look at it that way. But if it's not in that list, then you don't move to the next step. You give them the option again. So I think that's a nice way to handle it. But just know that from here on out, especially on Dev 1, because that's what we're coming up to, one of the first things I will do when I get your code is I will try to give it incorrect input and see what it does, because I do require you to have all inputs validated, because I want to drill this in your head. God, that sounds horrible. I want to get this in your head that you want to always think about that the user is going to they're going to want to get through it quickly. I mean, this is so true on the web. We do the same thing. I emphasize the same points if you've ever taken my JavaScript class as well, is that you have to do some level of validation so that you make sure, because your code's it's going to break. It's not going to work the way you want if you don't get good input. And right now we are the user, but it is just giving that muscle memory to something that's really vital in developing anything in this world. So that's why I do it. But I thought because before I started, I went and looked at the schedule just to see where we're at. So today, I'm running a week ahead. I think, almost caught up with all the grading for this class. And so we are counting this week, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks away from your next Dev. And that's 2 weeks after that is our spring break for the campus. So it's kind of nice not to have to go into spring break with your next Dev there. But as before, and again, I'm already putting the schedule together, you'll have some signups before. But then you have to come in for that review, right? Once you submit code on that day, then you'll have another week to come in for the review, the code review. You can do it before. I definitely suggest doing it before. But I'm probably going to do the schedule a little different this time, and maybe break out the 2 classes. We'll see. I haven't come to a final conclusion on that. Okay, so what's on tap for this week? I think 2 really fun days. The guessing game on day 12, but really understanding scope. It was so funny, and I actually said this in the instruction for day 12. Like, my code to the challenge, I liked better than hers, but I understand why she showed it the way she did. So this you're doing a little pre-review for something you haven't done yet, but that it and I was curious if you've ever had the experience where you wrote code that worked and it was almost hard to watch the solution because you liked your own better. Have you ever had that? I had that happen this time. And then 13 is one of those really helpful things because we don't really do so much challenges. Well, we do challenges, and but it's different because it's all about debugging your code. And I really feel like, and I love that she does this section, but I'm just going to harp back to the idea of setting breakpoints and running the debugger, because running the debugger and knowing how to debug your code inside of VS Code is just so helpful. Okay. So I just can't say enough good about it. And like when I was writing this little, refactoring this little example I found for iterating over a dictionary, right? If I was having any kind of problems understanding that, so first I have to give it, let's say, basketball. And then let's say I did it for 40 minutes, right? Calories. And then if I did say no, because at this point, and that's the other thing is, remember, where you're setting a break point, you have to run the inputs to get your point to that code. So if I just say no, then I hit that line of code. And what happens is, this is the line it's halted on. And if I hit step in, then once it passes that line, that's where I can scroll back up and see what was in this case, the K and the V, the key and the value. Right. So this is just, I think, an easier way to iterate over a dictionary so that I can pull the values out. And remember, if you don't use any of them, just put an underscore on that. But coming back here, day 13 was really helpful. And I tell you, most of you have probably been using the print just to do some of your debugging, but you really want to level up. You really want to level up that debugging. Debugging is one of the best tools you can add to your developer, coder, programmer toolkit as well. So you do have three, interactive exercises, but stuff we've seen before. So it's kind of fun to go back and debug that stuff. Okay. So I think it's a fun week. I think 9 is actually kind of fun. It feels like a little bit of a pace break, which is kind of fun. And then day 14. And actually, next week, as we head into, we're going to do a project on 14. And then 15 is actually the day. And I think I end up combining, but I think 14 and 15 together, because it's the day she actually converts to what we've already been using this whole time, right? So we have been using this local dev environment the whole time. So in the course, she's going to convert over and she's going to use PyCharm. And I think VS Code, I like VS Code because I can use it for whatever coding, and it's become somewhat of best practice. Honestly, Microsoft should be proud of what they've created. But if you happen to be a huge fan of PyCharm, it's really up to you. I think most of us will probably stay with VS Code just because probably at this point used to it and you've already got the setup done. It's kind of interesting, and that's the other thing I'll start giving you some content about if you're interested. If you are thinking about your dev one and you're thinking about, maybe I want to use a library, just know before you do that, you do need to understand how to set up virtual environments. And I already have videos and code, or videos and instruction for that. So if I haven't posted it yet, and I know Nate has at least checked it out and had a few challenges, but I hope he got through it. But just know that if you're even thinking about adding a third party, which again, we don't cover yet, but some students want to kind of venture out because they want to do something beyond the scope of the project, meeting the requirements, but extend their skills, which, by the way, I really recommend. These devs are supposed to be challenging. They should be challenging because that's where you really stretch your skill. Anyway, if you want to know about that before we get there, give a shout out on Discord, which this class has been real quiet on Discord, which, it happens. So, say hi once in a while out there. I know Maria said hi, and I know Nate says hi to her, and Owen's been on there a couple of times. So, I appreciate everybody who posts, ask questions, or posts just, check-ins, which is cool. All right, week 9. Let's do it.